the thing in the kitchen that holds your utensils. In America, we call it drawer. In Connecticut, they call it drawer. Let me do the Wi-Fi. And after I was done in Connecticut...
What do you call a cabinet when you're from home?
A cupboard?
Cabinet.
Cabinet. Oh.
And it's not a sink, it's a zinc.
Oh. Well, there you go. They're notifying viewers that we've gone live. Yeah. Yeah, they're serious about their donuts in Connecticut. So I was in Connecticut training this weekend for special education, and I asked this lady, how did you find out about the academy? And she goes, you did a professional development for us in New York. I don't think I have. I said, I did? She goes, yeah, for 4 sessions they played your videos. I'm like, I'm going to need Alicia to send them an invoice. Like,
ma'am, I need their name, their email address.
I know, it's old. She said, I was like, she's like, yeah, you did our professional development. I'm like, I feel like there would have been an invoice. Not that I need the money. I just like to give it to places like Dillard's and Talbot's, and they don't have a Dillard's in the Connecticut. They had the Macy's.
That's bananas. B-A-N-A-N-A-S.
Bananas. They were lovely people though. And I went to Yale, so now I can say, because it makes people so in their feelings. When somebody asks me where I went to college, I can say I went to Yale. Because I did. I went to Yale. And then I went the next day, after the trainings, to Mystic Pizza, Mystic, Connecticut. Oh, so cute. It all looks just like it looked in the movie. So, except for it's all about this big. So, and yes, I'm such a tourist. I went into the restaurant, didn't eat, but stood there and took pictures of the posters. Because that's how I roll. Yeah, Yale. I have a sweatshirt and everything. So I think I'm going to make a TikTok in my sweatshirt just to make people crazy. Right, Elise?
I think it should be a thing that we do now. Every state that you go to, you should visit a college.
Yeah.
And get a shirt, and they should just be your...
Yeah, and people say, where would you go to college? I went to Yale, and I did. I did.
I went to Harvard on the Bayou.
What is that?
Nichols. They literally have sweatshirts that say Harvard on the Bayou.
Well, I'll have to get those from my daughter since she works there now.
Correct. Okay, are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
What are the guidelines around determining if a child qualifies for related services, specifically OT? I have a child in referral now, and the OT eval for each area on the sensory processing measure says, quote unquote, no difficulty. But I know the child is struggling and could benefit from service. What should I do? FYI, this is a school-based member asking, but because of the position in which she holds, we're going to remain anonymous.
Yeah, so the good thing is that we make decisions as a multidisciplinary team. That means all the committee members give their input of how the child performs across settings. And so, one of the great things about evaluators, which is also their Achilles heel, is they might have seen him for 1 day. They might have seen him for 15 minutes. They might have gotten the bulk of their input from a certain teacher. So we really want to lean into those people that are boots on the ground, that work with them day in and day out. So certainly offer where he struggles in class. And we're actually about to start a series tonight on related services under IDEA. So you don't want to miss that. And the great Alicia will tell you how you can join us in the academy. All about related services.
So what you're going to do is you're going to go to www.specialeducationacademy.com. You're going to click on the training tab at the top. There you will find any future webinars that we have, though we don't have them right now. You will find our 2-day training that's coming up, our Mastermind that's coming up, and the Academy. You're going to click on the Academy. You're going to put in all your information. And then right after the password, you're going to type in all caps, TikTok Live. That's T as in Timothy, I as in Karen. No.
I as in Karen.
T as in Timothy, I as in Indigo, K as in Karen. T as in Timothy, O as in Oliver, K as in Karen, L as in Lemur, I as in Indigo, V as in Victory, E as in Elephant. All caps, TikTok Live, and you'll get the access to the Academy 15 days for free. After that, you can cancel at any time or stay for $47 a month. You'll get access to 300 hours worth of trainings and access to Karen every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Central Time, where you can ask her questions and take her trainings live. We did that earlier than I was expecting.
I is for Karen. Correct. All the letters of...
I was typing it in the thing and I was on the K when I said it.
I feel like all the letters in the alphabet are for Karen.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. Okay. I'm going to try. This one was from an email. It was very long. I'm going to try to summarize it the best I can. This is from a teacher. They have a student this year that is in 6th grade, and her reading instructional level is at a kindergarten level. She can read and decode very well, and it's actually a strength of hers. However, she is in a general education science class. The student is clearly frustrated and struggled greatly in the class, but it's a general education class, so they're not able to modify the curriculum, or then they will be saying she's passing 6th grade science curriculum. This student has a BIP and many special accommodations to support her. What recommendations would you have for the IEP team in a situation like this for the student?
Sounds like you're in Florida, and they struggle with, what's the word I'm thinking of? Telling the truth. So you can modify any academic content area. You just can. So there's no state in America that you can't modify math, reading, language, arts, science, or social studies. So I don't know who told you that. We modify kids in content areas all the time. If you're reading at a kindergarten level, your academics need to be modified. So certainly social studies, science, reading, language, arts. She might be crushing it in math, but you can modify anything.
All right, so the next one, they said that in a video, you mentioned that the ESE aid can provide services as long as it is not the quote-unquote majority of services. Where can I find that legally stated?
So I don't think I said exactly that. I think what I said was the aid, can provide special education as long as it's under the watchful eye and or supervision of the special educator. The assumption is that wouldn't be the bulk of the time. So in Texas, we have, and almost every state has guidelines. So in Texas, if you reach out to Texas Education Agency, they have a guideline brochure that is 31 pages long. And at the bottom of page 22, in the final paragraph, it indicates that. So the paraprofessional is somebody that supports the teacher. And so the paraprofessional is going to be supporting the special education teacher. And that's their role, but it's certainly not their role to write an IEP, to write goals, to write the present levels, to write new goals, or to provide initial instruction to the student with a disability.
Okay, this one says, hi.
Hi.
I'm a teacher in Wyoming. Oh, this one's important. Ready, sit up. This can be a good TikTok video.
Okay.
Okay. Hello, I'm a teacher from Wyoming. I got fired for reporting a SPED violation. I secretly helped the parents and advocate with evidence to file their state complaint. I also had been emailing my principal for over a year about how speech minutes are not being met. In December, I emailed HR, my principal's boss, and the head of SPED for the district all of my evidence. I got a non-retained and then fired after calling out falsified information on an IEP in a meeting, which I also had proof of the false data from the alleged source. Then I was put on administrative leave so I would not be in the building when the state investigator showed up. I had to essentially sign a gag order as long as I was getting paid. What are my options for recourse?
I don't know because that's an HR issue. I don't know about the parameters in the document. I would like to tell you thank you for doing that, which is right by children. It's unfortunate that in America, it's unusual that we do things right by children. And I'm sorry the district treated you that way, but I really want to thank you for doing what's right.
No, she was so brave. This is also why whenever people ask us as teachers, what can I do? We say, not much. Because this is what happens.
Yeah.
Okay. Last one from me, and then I'll toss it over to Christina. One of my students has a seizure disorder, and the seizures are unpredictable. Her IEP states that she will attend specials with adult support. Due to the fact that the student was not able to attend with an adult that could stay close to her to aid in the seizures, I kept her with me for her safety. This is from her teacher. I know this is a violation of her IEP. I was written up by my principal for not following her IEP as I was told to send her with an assistant that was covering multiple students. The parents of the students with the seizure is requested a meeting and are bringing an advocate stating that their child is not making adequate progress due to the lack of classroom support. My question is, what advice can you offer me to face this situation?
I mean, you're doing the best that you can with what you have. I mean, you're not part of somebody trying to manipulate outcomes. I'm so sorry that that's happening. But I'm on board with you. You did what you thought was ethical at that moment to keep the child safe. So I would stand by that.
All right. If I take your training, would I be equipped to start working as an advocate?
Immediately. Immediately. Is that right, Christina?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right, Alicia?
100%, boss.
100%.
Boss.
100%. You'll be a baby boss and you'll be ready to launch Monday morning at 8 a.m.
This hurts my heart reading it. Betty shared, I had a school member yesterday make the remark that my daughter is a waste of resources from the school.
I would file an Office of Civil Rights complaint. It's just disgusting. Then don't work with children. If you can quantify a human's value for a check, you are in the wrong business.
All right, gen ed teacher here. So much respect for sped teachers. I love watching your videos.
Oh, awesome.
All right. We recently signed an IEP. Now we want to change his placement. How can I do that?
I mean, if you want to make any changes or consideration of changes from the committee to the IEP, then you have to convene a review meeting.
All right. My son has transferred districts and has been out of school for over a week because of placement problems.
Is that a statement? Is that a question?
It is a statement, but I'm assuming if there was enough room on the Tickety Talk, that it'd probably be, what should I
Like
do?
they don't have the placement that was agreed upon in the last meeting. I would need a little more context around that.
Okay. So, Maria, if you can add some more information, then we can follow up.
Yeah.
All right. Just by watching your videos, I got my first ARD meeting and went from 2 goals. Oh, from 2 goals to 22.
Wow, that's awesome.
All right. What is the difference between, do you need an FBA in order to have a BEP?
Well, you need to have performed a functional behavior assessment, and then those findings determine whether or not the student rises to the level of needing a behavior plan. You could have 3 levels of support for behavior needs. You could have accommodations, you could have accommodations and goals, or you could need a behavior accommodations, goals, and a behavior intervention plan. So that FBA will tease out which level of support that student needs.
Excellent. Okay. Special education teacher is out due to surgery. A student teacher will be subbing. Can we count that towards minutes?
If she's a certified special ed teacher, you either are a certified special educator or you ain't. It's really clear. There's no gray area. Would you have a litigator that was in process of being an attorney? Would you have a surgeon? If a surgeon came out and said, listen, I'm in process of being a surgeon, you either are a special educator or you are not. Why is that so important? At the end of your meeting, what do? They read assurances. That assurance is tied to this annual letter that your state wrote to the federal government saying in exchange for this federal money for IDEA, we will provide special education with fidelity. It's a big deal.
All right. Can you tell me, again, the difference between modifications and accommodations?
Yeah, accommodation changes how we learn. So I'm sitting down right now. You might be sitting down. If you were standing up, you could still be hearing the same content. How we learn makes things better for us to learn. So my husband and I are both type A. Shocking. He likes to be in a room that's pitch black and to be 7 degrees. I like every light in the house on, boiling water, the dryer going, a disco ball. Those are different learning modalities. It doesn't change content. So accommodations affects how we learn, right? A modification changes the learner's expectation and what they learn. So a modification is usually a reduction of the state standard and a reduction or an alteration of the learner's expectation. So Gina's teaching the English class for 8th grade. They've got to read War and Peace, or whatever you read, in 8th grade, and they have to answer 50 questions on the final test. That student may solely answer 15 questions, or may be able to answer questions with some, support from the special education teacher. Gina is talking to herself, but I think it's fantastic.
Karen's not listening to me. I said, hey, Karen, good to see you tonight.
Good to see you, honey.
Do I have legal educational rights for my nephew with the power of attorney that he signed? He's 18 years old.
Power of attorney means that you can, so I'm a mediator for the family courts. I'm not an attorney. So power of attorney has specificity. So I have power of attorney for my mom that lives with me. So I have power of attorney of her finances. I have power of attorney of her final decisions. I have power of attorney for medical decisions. So power of attorney has specificity. So if in that power of attorney, he gave you educational rights, however, if he's cognitively able to give you power of attorney, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. Is that a good answer? I don't know.
You know what? That's a fantastic answer.
Yeah.
It's an honest answer. It's a good answer.
I like it.
That's what I appreciate. Always expect honesty from you, Karen.
That's what I expect. Except unless the nurse asks me how much I weigh. I'm like, which side?
I don't care. All right, my child was placed on an IEP for SLD and dyslexia. He was also placed on a 504 plan for homebound setting due to migraine headaches. The school district is not providing general education for him while he's on homebound. They are providing 120 minutes per week of special education for math and reading, but that's it. I feel as though he's in denial of FAPE. Please advise.
So he wouldn't be in denial of FAPE. That's funny. So I don't know what you mean he has an IEP and then a 504 at home. Homebound, whether you're general ed 504, the valedictorian, special ed, the quarterback, is usually all 4 academics delivered an hour each at home. So I don't know what state you're in. I'm thinking it might start with the letter I. But he's required to have all 4 academics, those core content delivered by a homebound instructor. Depending on which kind of instruction he gets at school, it might be by a special ed homebound teacher.
If students have multiple eligibilities, do they all have to be listed in the IEP? My daughter got her IEP under the eligibility of OHI and then changed it to autism when she received the diagnosis. But they too should be for OHI for ADHD, but they took that off.
Yeah. Welcome to Missouri. I'm sorry, it's a bunch of states that do that. So we list all of their eligibilities so that we can program for their unique circumstances. So the reason we find them eligible is so that we can write specially designed instruction around them, accommodations and supports so that they can have a meaningful education and make progress in light of their unique circumstances. If you don't list their unique circumstances, it would be hard for me to help him make progress in light of them.
I'm trying to understand if a child is refusing to attend DAP, does the school have the ability to use that as an excuse not to provide his minutes of service? Essentially, the school is saying since he doesn't want to attend, they're not providing the minutes of service that are in his IEP.
So when he comes to school, you drive him to DAEP. It's not, so if he's staying at home and not coming to the school, I mean, that's whenever he decides.
Would they need a bilingual person to service them?
No. We have a lot of districts that do dual language immersion. I don't know why. But no, there's not a requirement for that.
All right. I have been given training in the case of a seizure for a student. I was told I am required to administer life-saving medication, although I have had reservations to that. Am I covered under the Good Samaritan law? Or could she sue me personally if I do something wrong?
If somebody wants to sue you, they can sue you. Will it be relevant to the court? Will the court accept it as a case to be heard before the court? That's up to the court. So as somebody that spends a lot of time in the court system, not an attorney, just a mediator, I can sue Travis that he owes me $200 for hairspray. So he has to legally respond because I filed. Is the court going to take it up? I don't know. He can just return my hairspray. So you can be sued for anything. I'm not really sure the specificity around the Good Samaritan law, but we live in a litigious society.
Unfortunately. If the teacher on record is out and we do not have a sub because no one ever covers our class or wants to, am I required to work on their IEP goals? By the way, I'm a para.
So you're required to do what the special educator supervised you to do and trained you to do.
In an IEP, can the mom request adding her child or say that her child cannot be sent home for vomiting and diarrhea and say that's part of his behavior?
So that's a medical outcome that is driven and determined by the medical team, not by a parent. We had the same kind of question last week about a child that his body heats up. So bottom line is the nurse does the same thing across settings, whether you have a disability, you don't have a disability. They have protocols that are based on medical need.
Where's the law or the code I can find out about 504s requiring a diagnosis?
So the 504 Act, the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, that was a good year, second grade. The Rehabilitation Act of 1973 is 45 words long. You can look it up online. And it says an individual with a disability cannot be denied accommodations.
I was told I can't communicate with my child's one-to-one para. Is that normal?
It's not unusual. I would definitely say it's illegal. I have the right to communicate with anybody providing my child an educational product. I certainly have the right to communicate with anybody providing my child special education. And if somebody said that to me, I would ask them to put that in a prior written notice by close of business.
This is a teacher. What should I do as a teacher when we're having trouble getting parents to be held accountable for their students' attendance?
I mean, either children attend or they don't attend. That question is then taken up by truancy courts.
Should I have an IEP meeting with the department representative or the actual teacher my son will have?
Your son will have? So, I mean, I would wonder what your IEP meeting is for. Do you want to just meet the staff for next year? That can just be a parent conference. So whatever IEP they have in place should be, going into next school year. But I certainly would ask for, if you know who the teacher is going to be next year, I certainly would want to introduce myself and tell you all about my amazing cherub.
We have 2 substitute teaching assistants in the self-contained class.
That's a problem because you've been a witness to a crime. So you're either a certified educator or you're not. Here's our experience. So myself and my partners, we file every day, unfortunately, a lot in these situations. And immediately when these cases are opened, they immediately find a special educator for that role. I mean, like, immediately. Isn't that amazing? So I think that we have to have better equity of value of children. It's not equitable in public schools.
Amen to that. All right, right up your alley. How do I find a mediator in my area? Mediator question.
So if you're going to go to mediation with the school district, mediation with the school district is voluntary on both sides, and both parties have to agree to a mediator. Your state will have a list of mediators to choose from.
Okay, I have a first grader in an inclusion classroom, and I was told that they cannot modify the curriculum. Is that right?
Please provide me that legal information by close of business tomorrow. Yeah.
The OT stated that she does not work on writing, and she is just going to observe my daughter.
She doesn't work on writing. Is she like an imaginary OT, like I'm an imaginary swimwear model? Come on now. I'm pretty sure that's one of the things you work on in school. Writing, holding a pencil, holding scissors, buttoning, stapling. I feel like the bulk of what OTs do in school has to do with writing. Yeah. Maybe she just was, maybe she was just visiting your school. Maybe she doesn't even work there.
All right, my son has ASD, ADHD, DMDD, and was placed in special education and wasn't successful, or I think in gen ed and wasn't successful, and now is going to his 7th placement.
And so tell me what your question is.
All right, Selena, can you finish that? Send up the follow-up component to that. Can a para provide inclusion minutes if there's no SPED teacher for that subject?
No, I mean, you have to, it's, we're doing it everywhere. We're doing it in New York and California and Florida and Alaska. So let me be clear. It's happening everywhere. It's happening to your kids, right? Myself and my partners could just file on this all day long. We don't do that. We want successful outcomes for kids. But when a teacher, a special educator, is never provided to the student, which is what we find, that's a problem. I love paras. I love aides. They changed the life of my son. They're not teachers. They're not teachers. And they're certainly not special education teachers. I love them. Their role is to support the students in the class. They usually are supporting 5, 6, 7, 8, a dozen students. But they've never been trained to teach, and they've never been trained to do specially designed instruction. So you wouldn't ask me, after I put a Band-Aid on the neighborhood kid, you wouldn't go, hey, can you do brain surgery? No. And so it's unfortunate. So what you've done now is you've turned the general ed teacher in the classroom and the para both into special educators, and they're neither one of those.
Can a school decide what is a part of a diagnosis and what is not based on a child's behavior at school?
Well, I've seen that happen in the most egregious way. I had a school district, Frisco Independent School District, in a due process hearing tell me that she could tease out the difference between a tic and behavior. After we had the national education coordinator as a witness saying you can't. She goes, oh, I could. So you know a difference between a involuntary neurological response and a chosen behavior? Yes, I do. And I didn't say anything because it wouldn't have been appropriate. That's frightening. It's frightening.
Okay. Are schools required to provide a dyslexia therapist for a child diagnosed with dyslexia?
They're not dyslexia therapists, but they're to provide somebody who's certified in dyslexia instruction in that state. I mean, if they're a therapist, that's great. I feel like I could use a therapist. Thanks, you guys, for all the gifts. I appreciate it.
All right, so follow up to that question
Okay.
with the kiddo that's on their 7th placement. So they were in a school specifically for kiddos that have an ED diagnosis, and now they have no other placements since he was removed from that placement. Sounds like school cannot accommodate him. What would the next steps be?
So we need to have a meeting to look at out-of-district placement at the expense of the district. You have to educate the student who's enrolled in your school district till the age of graduation. It's the law.
Can we provide an accommodation that's not specified on an IEP?
I wouldn't. I wouldn't do anything that is not inside of the IEP. I'm getting a lot of hand signals. I don't know if they're landing a plane or Popeyes is being delivered, but I'm excited either way. There's exits at either end.
We're doing both. We do all of it.
All of it.
You're speaking, and you are helping the people, and we're directing the traffic.
Thank you.
And delivering the Popeyes.
Yes.
All right. Does the school have to provide someone trained to administer emergency medication to my daughter for her adrenal insufficiency during extracurricular activities in junior high should an emergency occur? Or can they require the parent to be present for her to participate both after school and weekend events? She also wants to take theater.
Yeah, so in her IHP, in her individualized healthcare plan, there should be information whether she's on the bus or an extracurricular activity that's part of a grade. And I could do a whole training on that. If you want to be in the pom-pom squad, that's not part of UIL, right? Debate, football, volleyball, those are all instructional classes that come with requirements that include activities after school. So when a student is on the bus or going to one of these activities, there is somebody that's trained and is able to implement the individual healthcare plan with fidelity.
While I recognize that our meeting minutes reflect the school's perspective, some records appear biased in the school's favor. How do you recommend responding when our deliberation details support the school's narrative in a clearly one-sided manner?
I would just yell out, liar! No, I'm just kidding. I would not do that.
Yeah.
So what I do is I just say, hey, Christina, I understand that that's your account of the deliberations. I don't want to go back and forth with you at the end of a disagreed meeting or a meeting that's been really hard for the parent. But what I'll do is by close of business tomorrow, I will provide you a written response to our recollection of the accounts of today.
In an IEP, can the... Sorry, repeating.
I was just going to say boom shakalaka.
And an IEP called for boom shakalaka. That must be in Louisiana.
What's every time? Okay, are we required to take our students on field trips knowing their sensory issues will make it a terrible time for them?
You're required to offer them access to field trips like any other student. I have parents on this Zoom right now that are my amazing team that it's just not a good day for their kiddo, right? So we're not going to do that. And that's why you have really good teachers that take into account. It just would be too much, if we're going to take them to the truckathon with, it would just be too loud. So we want them to benefit from it, right? We write an IEP. We want to keep them with their non-disabled peers to the maximum extent possible. In LRE, we talk about extracurricular activities and field trips when it's appropriate. The point of the whole education is to benefit the child.
I have an adopted 11-year-old daughter who is having true issues at school. She is diagnosed with FASD and has several other related problems. She's developmentally about a 7 to 8-year-old. The school wants to transfer her out of the district. I have asked to put her in a program that has lower IQ students to allow her to not be punished for needing so much help and problems understanding topics, but the school said she is too high functioning to qualify. What are your recommendations? By the way, being sent out of district means busing for 1 hour each way.
I don't know why she need to be sent out of district because she's too high. None of that makes any sense. So the school is responsible for providing her free appropriate public education inside of the school district. We have children that have out of district placement, but it's not because they're too high. It's because they are unsafe. So I would really tease that out.
We're having an initial eligibility meeting for a kindergarten student who was referred through our INRS and RTI committee. The student is an ESL student, and recent educational testing showed average scores in all areas except written expression and reading comprehension. Psychological scores do not reveal a discrepancy. We want to refer this student for basic skills instruction through Title I for additional support during the school day for the areas of weakness. Can a student have both basic skills instruction as well as ESL, or would this be the least restrictive environment?
Yeah, ESL services or LEP services or any of that, they're not exempt from special education.
Okay, so I have one that I seen come up that just reminds me of Jude. So they're asking if you can ask for a pants material accommodation because their child goes to a school that has school uniform requirements, but the uniform and pant material agitates their autistic son's sensory needs. So they're asking if it's a reasonable accommodation for him to be able to wear different pants.
Yeah, I would just get a letter from your physician saying that's not appropriate for him to have to don that clothing during the day. See how I did that? Don the clothing. Jude is really good at.
What Jude would do.
He'd be dolphin. He would make his own accommodation. He would wait from nobody.
Yeah. A lot of dolphin. What can I do? Oh,
Sorry. You ready now? Oh, I had some in the bank.
you had some in the bank.
I did.
I had a nickel pickle surprise I had to deal with here.
Yeah, I see. So that's what I would like.
What do I do if they want to retain my child with an IEP, diagnosed autism? I don't see any reason for retaining.
So there's not a lot of data to support retention. I would ask, what do they think will be the meaningful benefit, and what data, academia, do they have to support retention? So I'm going to go for retention if a kiddo is a kindergartner and they haven't met all the standards. But that's an administrative decision. There's not a lot of data that supports retention after those years has any benefit. And it's, if they are in special education, repeating the year may not make up those gains.
Can a school approve an IEP after an IEE for math only when there is currently a dyslexia diagnosis?
Well, if dyslexia is being served in special ed, then yes, they could approve it only for math.
What data do schools need to have for a child to go on modified curriculum?
That they are multiple years behind, that their reading, writing, math is not in the normed range, and after years of other intervention, he's not making the expected gains that we thought he would.
What do you do when you disagree with a punishment for a behavior, but the school is doing it anyways?
So I'm certainly going to have an MDR, Manifestation Determination Resolution meeting. At that meeting, we're asking if this behavior was causation from his condition, his conditions, his disabilities, his areas of eligibility. And then based upon that, we make a decision that yes or no, it was a cause of his disability. And then based upon that, we make a decision as maybe he's had 2 days of in-school suspension. Maybe we think that's enough. But those are administrative decisions. Those are tough meetings. So important if your child has behaviors related to his disability that we are documenting that in the IEP long before you ever need to, under the area in the document where it says he's able to understand and held to the student code of conduct. So I would vehemently disagree with that for a child that's ID. I would vehemently disagree with that for a child that's ED or ADHD or has autism, but I'm going to put that in that area long before we ever even have to address a behavior.
Karen, can you please tell us when are you going to have another training for advocates?
Well, that will be...
People that want to become an advocate.
If you would like to become an advocate, it's Saturday, May 18th and Sunday, May 19th. It will be virtual, live. It'll be the last one that... Maybe the last one that... it'll be the last one I do probably for a while. I think we had one in February. We're just so crazy busy. We have hearings even this summer. But you will be ready by the end of it to be an advocate. We will set you up and teach you how to get business, retain business, and be the most able to serve that student with a disability at meetings.
Is that called the 2-day training?
The 2-day intensive. And let me ask you, ladies and gentlemen, is it intensive?
It's intensive.
Did your head hurt at lunch the first day?
It is all the things.
It's all the things. And sweet little Gina was there. I was like, oh, what a nice little teacher. And now she's a gangster. So.
I am a gangster.
She is a gangster.
Mm-hmm. And I'm proud of it.
Yeah, last year at this time, she was just a wee little teacher, just helping out the little children. Now she's the crusher. Now she's upsetting school board members. Attorneys are getting their feelings hurt. They call her names. So proud of her.
They need to get over it. Okay, on to the next question.
They need to get over it.
My son has been placed in a YCAP setting, and I don't agree with the placement. I've disagreed twice, so they just moved him from life skills to YCAP, and I feel like I've lost any options. What can I do?
Well, if it's within 5 days, you still have the right to file due process, which puts in a stay put. If it's outside of the 5 days, your options would be to file a state complaint.
Right. Karen, I know for sure that my student is only receiving his inclusion support services from a para, and the school is telling me that that is completely within their guidelines to do so.
I wonder which school district that is. So many to choose from. Here's the law. 300.156 lists the requirements of special educators. Additionally, there is a little letter, October 4th, 2022, that is from the federal government hammering state education agencies. And it says, listen, we know that you're doing this. We know that you are not providing special education from special educators. So it's a requirement, even in Texas and Florida and Montana, Wyoming, Massachusetts, or as Alicia would say, Massachusetts. So it's a requirement in all the states. It's always been a requirement. We didn't even get a pass during the beginning of COVID. So we're not ever going to get a pass. So I would file, and we do this. And if you're interested in support for filing, this is where we get a lot of intake at the end of the year. And we have a team of partners that can help you. We can file in any state because people at the end of the year realize that they were janked on their IEP. And then we are very good at filing state complaints. The name of the October 4th, 2022 letter is from OSEP. So if you just type in OSEP, October 4th, 2022, it'll come right up. And so Alicia's she's either stretching or I've won something. Yes, Alicia?
You haven't won anything, but everybody in the chat has won me. No, I'm just kidding. So I've had like 7 people ask, where can they sign up for the training? How do they sign up for the training? And what was the date of the training again?
SpecialEducationAcademy.com. Go to trainings, and it's the 2-day intensive, Saturday, May 18th, Sunday, May 19th.
There's also a link in the link tree and her bio.
And there's a link, like a sausage link. Is that, no?
Not that kind of link.
Oh, not that kind of link. Right.
All right. My student has an IEP with an eligibility of basic reading skills and dyslexia. He is struggling in math, but they told me that they cannot address any of the math concerns because he only has a reading eligibility. In his IEP, they even do not give us any information in the present levels about math and said they don't do so because he doesn't have an eligibility in math. What can I do?
I would say I'm certainly sorry that you are so misinformed on the legalities. So let me tell you the law. So you would go out and you would go to Google. Have you been to Google? And you would type in Andrew F. ENDREW, F as in Frank, versus Douglas County School District. And there's a Supreme Court decision. There's even an OSEP letter of questions and answers. And here's what the law says now. We are charged with reasonably calculating an IEP to enable the child to make progress in light of their circumstances. Doesn't say anything about disability. So if there's an area of need identified by the multidisciplinary team, we have to write IEP goals, accommodations, and supports to mitigate that impact.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What can be done if a school is only offering my student virtual speech therapy services?
So we disagree with that modality, and we will wait till you have a person for in-speech services, and we will receive a compensatory package from the district.
Should I be alarmed if my student's progress report on certain goals only says not worked on during this grading period?
That's a problem. So I start out all of my IEP meetings, go over IEP progress reports for the last 36 instructional weeks. You better have worked on them because they were written for 36 instructional weeks. I don't know why you wouldn't have done them. If you've done that, you've violated the conformity of the IEP. The conformity, I tell you.
Every day. All right, last question from me right now. So my student has had an IEP in place for 4 years. I currently asked them to reevaluate, and upon reevaluation, they told me he no longer qualifies for an IEP. In fact, the special education director said she disagreed that he ever qualified for an IEP, and he will no longer have one. How has my student gone from having an IEP since kindergarten, now in 4th grade, to suddenly no longer qualifying and supposedly never having qualified to begin with?
So did they say that to you in person? Did they say that to you in writing? Did they say that to you before you had the IEP meeting? So we can't make any decisions until we have an IEP meeting. So I would file with the state that's a violation of predetermination. And I would tell the special education director, did y'all hear
What does
that?
that mean?
Here, I'm gonna tell some things that she's not gonna say on the.
Rapid fire time. All right. Can someone put in the chat the name of the website she said for the training? I totally missed it. It is www.specialeducationacademy.com. If you type it in the chat, you can't actually put the dots and the com, so we just put it in all caps. But www.specialeducationacademy.com under the training tab. It'll be the lime green picture. Also, it's on Special Education Boss's Facebook page and Instagram page. It's everywhere. We got it
It
everywhere.
was everywhere.
It's everywhere. Okay. Does the school have to provide a 6, which is an elementary student, I guess, at that school, a 1-to-1 aide to attend band at the high school?
A 1-to-1 aide to attend band. Let's think about that. What is the 1-to-1 aide going to do while you're playing the baritone? Are they going to push your valves down? Are they going to get your spit rag? Are they going to adjust your music stand? I was in band, as I'm sure you're not surprised, I was the actual drum major. Shocking. I can't imagine when a student would need a 1-to-1 para in band because they are banding, they are music playing, they are marching. So I don't know when you would, that would be the right setting if they needed a 1-to-1.
Okay. Child is in 8th grade and stopped special education, said no longer provided, and was put in general ed. What do I do?
So I don't know. Were you at those meetings? So you have to disagree with the school district twice. If you disagree, file a state complaint that you're being denied a free appropriate public education.
Okay, school gave IEP based on an SLD in math with dyslexia and ADHD diagnosis, says the diagnosis doesn't qualify him. Question mark?
A diagnosis doesn't qualify you. You don't need a diagnosis, you need an eligibility. So based upon all the input, which hopefully would include that medical diagnosis, the school has done their own robust evaluation to tease in or tease out eligibility for special education and related services.
What do I do if a child has been eating non-edible items and has not qualified for a 1-on-1?
Those are two totally different things. But pica is a real condition that humans have. I don't know that you necessarily need a 1-on-1. I think we certainly need to make sure that there are not things that he can eat. And certainly write that into the document to mitigate that outcome.
Okay, this one doesn't really have a question. It's just more of a comment, but I think we can gather what the question is. Teacher refuses to follow the IEP and is failing the child, and the school is refusing to force the teacher.
Then have the state force them. Ba-dum-bum. I would just go in there and go, what you doing? Where you at? Because I got plans. Don't say that.
The school tested my grandson for autism. They stated that he doesn't get good data and declared he was autistic.
Sounds like you need an out.
Clarifies that in a minute.
Okay.
We'll come back to that. How is SPED and IEP different from brick and mortar school and online?
I would argue that you can't implement an IEP online. And I would never, ever, ever let my families agree to an IEP online because you're not getting an IEP. I would agree to homebound services, but before I would agree to IEP online. There's nothing, you can't modify, you can't accommodate online. So.
And as a teacher who's had to do it, it's not easy.
Mm-mm.
All right. How does the SPED teacher's FMLA leave affect the IEPs and services?
It doesn't. I don't care who's there, who's not there. You have to implement the IEP with fidelity.
Okay.
Correct.
This one's asking, how do you file with the state?
So you would need to get somebody that knows how to file with the state. And why is that so very important? Because if you do it wrong, they're going to kick out your filing. Because your filing goes directly to an attorney who's very much versed in state and federal law. So any of our partners are able to do that. I'm able to do that. And that is an investment you're totally worth. Because if you don't file legally on the legal violations, you've just sent an emotional rant to the state that's going to get kicked out. And we believe in emotional rants, but we believe in receiving them and then populating them into a state complaint that has teeth.
I'm up or on that. Sorry.
Maybe that should be our website. Piranha IEP.
There you go. What are some things a parent should ask for with a student with an emotional behavior to get added into their IEP?
I mean, it's sort of like how many colors of blue are there? I mean, everybody that meets eligibility for emotional disturbance could be a child that's just severely depressed, all the way up to a child that is schizophrenic. So I wouldn't even dare to guess what that would be, but you want to make sure that you have a robust, full psychological evaluation. You want to make sure that they did a counseling as a related service evaluation. You want to make sure that you have a robust, if necessary, a formal functional behavior assessment and possibly a behavior intervention plan.
Okay. Should or can the school send testing results to a parent prior to the initial ARD? The school is ignoring my request.
Oh, of course they can. So the testing has a due date. So if the testing was due April 3rd, give it to me. Give it to me. Just like if you had a little kid who had like a piece of glass in their hand, you'd say, give it to me. So the point of a meeting is for us to collaborate. I can't collaborate if there's not equity. If you had a chance to review the documents, I should have the equal chance. I don't need an adult reading to me. I'm a fantastic reader.
That was like me in the IEP meeting the other day. I literally just took the IEP from the teacher and said, I'll just read it myself.
You were an IEP snatcher.
I was. I can't stand to be read to. It doesn't work for my brain.
Mm-hmm.
In Louisiana, just to let you know, all the people in the chat in Louisiana, they'll like to tell you can't get a draft before the meeting. The law is changing effective June 1st. They are required to send a draft of both the evaluation and the IEP.
I feel like that's a press conference coming on.
It's coming. All right. I've been a one-to-one for a K-5 kiddo fly position. Student is approved for an aide next year. Can parents, I don't know what EWQU is trying to say.
Can parents request that para go with the student?
Maybe, yeah.
You can, but you're probably doing such a good job at that campus, they wouldn't let you go.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Look, you're right on the money. If I scroll down, they kept saying that.
I know things. Not a lot of things.
I came to an IEP meeting with an IEP already written. Is that legal?
Yeah. I mean, it's called a draft. So I certainly don't want to walk into an IEP meeting and you hadn't written down the school's address. That's going to irritate me. And when I go into an IEP meeting, we have nothing. Really? You don't have the child's age or date of birth or your school's address on a piece of paper? Okay, we have it. So I certainly want the school to give me their working template and we can collaborate and work through the components to come to agreement.
Where can I find para training? I've been a one-to-one sub for 3 years.
That's an Alicia question.
No, I trained my paras. The school district didn't, but I trained my paras. I think my para actually attended one of Karen's 2-day trainings. And she felt more equipped after that than she did anywhere else. It's sad. Districts don't really train paras the way that they should. My district didn't. In fact, we would have professional development days, and the paras were just told to stay and work in the classrooms instead of attending the trainings with us. So we had training days. I had training days with my paras where we would go over what was coming, how to help each student, go over their IEPs. That was an anomaly. I gave them copies of the IEPs and what they needed and how to help the child. Gave them a copy of their behavior support plan.
You gave them copies of the IEP? Why would you do that?
Crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah. What happens when your student refuses to do the work? I go through their task list and give them all, I give them all their accommodations, and the general education teacher asks for work, but I can't get it to them, and the teacher fails the student. What can I do?
So, I mean, students still have requirements in any state to meet their obligations, whether it's special ed, 504, or general ed, and depending on what those requirements are, there are things that they have to do to get a passing grade. If a child's not going to do the work, you can't make them, but you certainly want to, track that.
What are different types of retention disabilities?
Retention is not a disability. Retention is a decision. It's a decision made by the parent and administration to repeat a grade they just completed.
This one's a good one. How can social impact be assessed when it comes to articulation concerns, preschool disabled?
What?
I thought it was a good question because I also was like, what? Okay, ready? How can social impact be assessed when it comes to articulation concerns, in parentheses, they're preschool and they're disabled?
I don't really understand the question.
All right, we're going to pass. Gina has a question.
Yes. Gina, your hair looks fantastic tonight. So does Travis's. Christina, yours looks fantastic too. The mom bun.
Nothing like a good flat iron. Yeah, I do have a question. So, and this is not a fake question, so hold on to yourself here, Karen. During my IEP meeting, the special education director went ahead and let me know that in the upcoming school year, the teacher that they've just hired for my daughter's self-contained classroom is not going to be a certified teacher. She's giving me the option of going ahead and staying here with an uncertified teacher or moving to a different school that will have a certified teacher. Should I be happy that she gave me this news ahead of time?
I don't know. Should you be happy that your school's telling you that they're going to take federal funds and not staff your class? No. Should you stay or should you go? You stay. It's your child's campus. So the school has an obligation to provide special education. But they easily manipulate parents because they get parents to feel bad for them. No, I promise you, when the Office of Civil Rights or the state comes in, it's amazing. There'll be a teacher in there the next day.
And we have seen that in complaints, Karen.
Yes.
I just love this question right here. And I'm just going to rattle it off and see if Karen can remember. Just pull it out of her bank of all of your knowledge. But can you explain CFR 300.156 Section 2C?
I'm not sure what Section 2C is, but 300.156 talks about special educators, their requirements.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that one C is talking about how they have to. It's the qualifications for special education teachers.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go, and there you have it.
And there you have it. All right. The baby is fussy. Can you hear him?
Barely.
Okay, good. Can they recommend home hospital and an IEP due to no placement, or you don't agree on a placement?
Home, hospital are two different locations, so you can't be at the hospital and home at the same time. And you can't recommend a hospital in an IEP meeting. We'd like for you to go to the hospital. Hi, I'm here. The IEP committee said for me to come here. Wouldn't that be great, you guys? And bring up my steak tartare. What? And a Dr. Pepper extra ice. What the Hello Kitty are you talking about? Oh.
What does the LRE look like in specials?
Same thing as it looks like for everything else. Is it appropriate, if we support him, to have him in that content area with his non-disabled peers?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Governor.
I don't know.
That was like when you think about LRE and specials, like my son couldn't tolerate PE, but he can tolerate music. You go where they can tolerate.
If they're
also library, he's gonna throw the books, so maybe don't bring him back.
Yeah, but paper mache, we can get after that.
Yeah, all day. Okay, last one. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
How can I get ready before an IEP meeting? There you go.
Prayer, sugar, and a good night's sleep. So, you get ready by having as many documents ahead of time, have your questions written out, and stay student center focused. And remember, there's not a deadline. We don't have to finish today. I had a special education director, because I love the Lord, I'm not going to tell you her name, but she said I would like to just push through the meeting. I won't tell you what I thought. It's not appropriate for TikTok. I said, well, we haven't finished the PLAF. We can't just push through it because the rest of the document is based on the PLAF. So we're going to ask for parents' procedural rights to be delivered. They're asking to table the meeting. So, stay student-centered focus. If you can get done the first meeting time at the allotted time, do that. If you can't, then reschedule. It's kind of the most important thing. You're making decisions about your child for a full year.
All right, we're out, boss. Because what's starting in 30 minutes?
We are starting a series on related services under IDEA. What you don't know might hurt your student. And remember, we get it right for the child, we get it right for everybody. We'll see you guys in the next training.